Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to Sunday School. The topic, title of this morning is actually going to be the verse that we're going to be discussing. It's a simple bit of wisdom. It's an admonition from the Apostle Paul and something that's good for us to remember. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Ephesians 4, verse 26. Be ye angry, and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. It is a difficult thing when we consider all the ways that the flesh can get the better of us. When we look at our troubles of life and we look at where we're at, sometimes we're in need of wisdom. I love the way the New Testament contains admonitions in each one of the books. There are words of guidance to live by, words we should remember, proverbs of the New Testament laced throughout it. There are many things written for us. Some books are written, literally are books of wisdom, while others are books of admonition and warning. There's a prophetic work we know as the Revelation at the end of the New Testament. This is important. This particular commandment, this admonition of the apostle, is important for us to remember because it directly affects our ability to impact the world that's around us. I take care with the words that I speak. I want to make sure that I don't cross a line that I shouldn't cross. I'm one who likes to be very measured in my emotions when I present the word. I know there are times when my passion wants to get the better of me. And I remember what Paul taught us. I remember what Jesus taught us. I remember Jesus' words of wisdom. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. And we reveal who we are in the words that we say. And we do well to control ourselves in as much as we can in what we present and how. There's a few verses, a few things that I want to call attention to as we look at this. Let's go to Proverbs 15 for a moment. 15 verse 1. A soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. And this can be a cycle, that an almost endless cycle that will feed upon itself. If we can bring a situation under control, it is so much better than allowing it to spiral out of control. Grievous words stir up anger, and words can be spoken in anger. And it's very easy to see how one can allow themselves to be overtaken in making statements that are regretted soon after. Unfortunately, wounds of the heart, they may not be seen, but they can be far more dangerous, far more debilitating than wounds of the flesh can. Wounds of the heart caused by words can be wounds that heal very, very slowly and leave scars that, while they are not seen, they can be felt. And this is an important thing for us to remember. James is going to speak to this. We'll be looking at a few passages from his epistle. Colossians 3 and 4 has more statements. I could point you to different books. I could point you to different statements that Jesus made. The Sermon on the Mount we're going to consult this morning. And all through it, we do well to remember the guidance that we have from the Lord to live by. So let's go ahead and wade into this one. So first, we have to be careful not to allow our emotions to get the better of us. It is a very easy thing to do. Emotions are like the horse that pulls the cart. There's a lot of power in emotion. There's a lot of care and concern that can be conveyed, but there is also an awful lot of passion that can be stirred with the wrong words. And we're given the power of a sound mind, or a mind moderated by self-control. So let's go to 2 Timothy 1:7 here. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And it's important to know that the word that comes from sound has a direct relationship with self-discipline or sobriety, a sound mind or sound judgment. That is a mind that is under control, a correct mind. The idea being here that it is a mind that is ruled by reason, not a mind that is ruled by temptation or emotion or extremes, but a mind that is controlled. We have an important part to remember with that. Things we can read, the wrong things on the internet, we can see the wrong news story, we can see things presented the way they are, depending on what news channel we watch or where we get our news. I've seen more than one incredibly inflammatory thing on Facebook. There's my old favorite. Had a picture of President Obama standing on a stage with his hands at his side, and everyone else with their hands on their hearts. And it was going, the statement and the caption was that the president wouldn't even cover his heart, or wouldn't even put his hand over his heart when they were saying the Pledge of Allegiance. The difficult thing about that particular picture, it was taken when the people there weren't saying the Pledge of Allegiance. They were singing Hail to the Chief, which is a song specifically directed at the president at the office, very similar to things they would do to kings of old. I guarantee you, President Trump has had this song sung more than once, and it would be vanity for him to put his hand over his heart to be the recipient of such a chorus as many a president has been. The difficulty there is that someone took a picture and they put inflammatory words on it, spreading lies to try and anger people. And it's still, you can do a search on it today. You can see on Snopes the reported news story. You can see the actual picture that people have with the news story saying that they were singing Hail to the Chief. It doesn't matter. People still get angry over it. The problem is that it is falsehood and lies that bring it about. We have to be careful with that. Self-control, not to allow ourselves to go beyond what we should. We need to remember, same thing with judgment always. We don't always know all the facts. So we have to be careful not to allow our emotions to get the better of us. A very key and important scripture that goes hand in hand with this is James. James chapter 1, verse 19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. There are things we need to make sure that we take time and examine. Things that we have to make sure we have a good, solid understanding of what's happening. And I tell you, if we don't have to render a judgment on something, why render a judgment on it? If someone says, well, this happened, and there's any form of a possibility that you don't know that about it, then why allow yourself to be stirred to anger? We have a sphere that we need to take care of. We have our own lives to rule. We cannot control the lives of those beyond our sphere of influence, nor should we seek to. Rather, we should pray. We should keep people lifted before our Lord when it comes to all of this. The wrath of man does not work the Lord's righteousness. Emotions are a gift from God, but they have to be kept in their proper place. They cannot be allowed to rule us, whether it be in matters of want, matters of anger, or other spheres. They are a gift, but they do not replace reason when it comes to our understanding. I love what Paul says. 1 Corinthians 14:29 has an important statement that he makes. And some of you may recognize this as the passage that speaks to the use of the spiritual gifts, particularly speaking in tongues. 1 Corinthians 14:29. And that isn't exactly the verse I was after. Paul specifically states that he would rather speak 5 words with his understanding than, there it is, it's 19, not 29. Yet in the church I had rather speak 5 words with my understanding, that by my voice I might teach others also, than 10,000 words in an unknown tongue. There is a need for understanding and a need for reason, a need for our ability to slow down and properly frame the world in which we live. Don't let your emotions get the better of you. On top of that, we need to be careful with temptation when tempers are running hot. The warning in the verse is to avoid sin when we are angry. Emotions can lead us to make decisions we will regret in the future. We need to be very careful with the words that we say. I want to look at James chapter 3 with this thought in mind of being careful with temptation. James chapter 3. My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet they are turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. Also, so is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beasts and birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea, is tamed and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. Doth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, either a vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. The dangers of the tongue are very real, and the words that are spoken have lasting impact. We are told that we should not seek to be many masters. Literally, the idea is don't try to be a teacher, don't try to be a preacher, don't try to be a leader if you don't need to be. If you're called to it, it's different. But be prepared. We will receive the more earnest condemnation. It is a truth. I absolutely believe the words I speak are they're more examined by people, they're questioned more by people, and they have a real opportunity to change people's perceptions about me. That being said, the tongue is a member that seems to control so much. If we can only control what we speak. And I tell you, some of the greatest temptation comes from the words that we allow ourselves to be provoked to say when we are angry. We need to be very careful with that. I'm not mentioning the other kind of action that can take place. We are told to turn the other cheek when it comes to physical provocation. We're taught not to be strikers. Preachers cannot be those who in anger strike another. It's one of the qualifications. Allowing ourselves to be provoked to say the wrong thing, tempted to sin in the words that we speak, is only part of the danger. Physical may be another level of danger to be careful with. We have to be careful with temptation when tempers are running hot. We also need to settle conflict before the day is over. This is the let not the sun go down upon part. And this is a beautiful thing. This is one of those areas that I really strongly encourage you to be quick on. We're admonished of the Lord not to worry about the things of tomorrow. Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 6, Jesus tells us there are things we can't control. We can't control the color of our hair. We can't control how tall we're going to be. It is a grievous thing to know that I once stood 5'11" 3/4. Now it's 5'11". I seem to have lost 3/4 of an inch since high school. I can't make myself taller. It's something I can't control. I don't want to worry about the things of tomorrow. So why worry about bringing in the conflict of today into tomorrow? My grandfather told me an interesting story. Something that he used to do on a regular basis was make sure that all of his coworkers knew that from a day-to-day basis, everything started again first thing in the morning. If he left and he was angry with someone, he'd bring him a donut the next day. And they'd look at him weird, like, are we on good terms? And the truth was, he was letting them know, yesterday is yesterday. And Paul teaches us that. Paul teaches us that we should not be focused on the things of yesterday. Paul makes a statement that he has not arrived. And so many people are quick to point that out. It's good for us to acknowledge we have room to grow. It really is of solid truth. But Paul said that he had laid hand or hold on one thing, that he did count himself to have arrived in one area, and that was letting go of yesterday. That was the fact that though he had persecuted the Lord's work, he knew he could not do anything about yesterday. He'd given it to the Lord, and it no longer had power over him. That's a beautiful thing to remember. We needn't take into tomorrow the conflict of today. We can't do anything about yesterday. Today is the only day that we can have any hope of influencing. Let it be with reason and intention. Matthew chapter 5 has something important for us on this one. Verse 21. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not kill, and whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Agree with thine adversary quickly, whilst thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence, till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. The Lord doesn't even want us to offer our gifts if we haven't made peace with our brothers. If there's a brother or sister that has aught against us, we are to see that settled before we offer our gift. I wonder how many people have refrained from putting their gift in the altar, or not in the altar, in the plate because they weren't right with a brother or sister. How many times have people offered a gift while they still had a problem? It's an important thing to remember that the Lord would have us do what is necessary to be right with our brothers and sisters before we try and serve. It is showing that love to a brother or sister that is important. I still remember there was a day in Dubuque when I had a conversation, or some word was said, something of difficulty was occurred in the introduction before services were starting, and then the piano started to be played, and I went back over. I knew it was time. I just walked away and went over and sat in my seat, and it was there in a moment of conviction that I knew that services for me would go a whole lot better if I actually took time to make peace with my brother. So I got out of my seat, walked around the back, didn't disrupt services, but I got a chance to catch his attention, and I talked to him, and I told him that I didn't mean anything by the words that I'd said, that I wanted to make sure that everything was good between us. I felt the need to make sure that everything was right before services began. And they were still singing the song when I was at peace with my brother. And if I remember it correctly, that was an incredible blessing of a day. But I remember the lesson I learned. Following the Lord's will is the thing to do. Following His way is what we need to do. We need to be careful to make sure that we settle conflict before the day is over. Do not let the sun go down upon your wrath. In conclusion, it's good to be zealous, but our zeal must be controlled. We cannot allow it to control us. We can feel, we can weep, we can mourn, we can rejoice, we can worship, but it has to be according to knowledge, not in ignorance of the truth. Be ye angry, and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Brothers and sisters, I pray that this morning finds you healthy, that it finds you well, and that, like me, you are looking forward, and longing for the day when we will be back together in person. I anticipate, we know that there are changes coming in the guidance, that the social distancing things. I am hoping and praying that part of the relaxing of those orders will be that in the next week or so, gatherings larger than 10 will be permitted. And if that's the case, we will be back in the building. Those who are healthy and not at risk, hopefully with masks if we still need to. But I pray that the opportunity will be for us again to assemble. I know it's what the Lord wants, although I know harmless as doves, as wise as serpents. We need to be careful. I'm praying that our leaders, the leaders of our nation, are successful in carrying this out, and that they receive the blessing of the Lord in doing so. Remember, keep the Lord first always. Lord bless.